Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazarov Chess channel and welcome to a truly spectacular game from the computer chess rating list website, the popular CCRL. We have here Ethereal against Stockfish 17 in an amazing close Ruy Lopez, and this game that I'll show you now was suggested to me by one of my followers under the name Bluebell. Thank you for posting me this game. You texted me already many great games. I wanted to really thank you to this video. This game is really incredible. I think it fits into the immortal category because what you see now is an amazing, incredible, really a beautiful sequence that Stockfish found here. A beautiful bad bishop strategy where Stockfish will sacrifice one pawn just in order to lock its opponent Lightco bishop in the game. The game was prolonged and afterwards, so it was a deep strategic idea, a deep strategic concept that you see now here by Stockfish 17. An incredible game, and what I really liked especially here is that we see again a game with the black pieces in the most often played opening in the Ruy Lopez. So put your seatbelts on. Let's see now this immortal gameplay by Stockfish 17. So with the white pieces, Ethereal open with the move e4, e5, knight to f3. We have now the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish game, a6, the Murphy defense, and now after a couple more moves, we have now the closed Ruy Lopez. Rook to e1, connecting everything, b5, pretty standard ideas, and now after casting d3, we have now also the standard line with the move d6, a4, many times played, of course, trying to do something here on the a file. If you don't react correctly, then a takes b5 could cause really some damage on the a file. So that's why bishop to d7, Stockfish 17 connects now the queen to the rook. We have now h3, knight to a5, hitting the bishop, and now c5. Now we have a takes b5, and now after a takes b5, I think we have reached really a standard position of the Ruy Lopez, many times seen before. Of course, maybe with different sidelines, with, I don't know, different move orders, but I think it's a common position playable now for both sides. The Stockfish engine also at home evaluates this position as equal for both sides, so both engines have now good chances in the game. We have now knight to c3, h6, a prophylactic idea here by the fish, not allowing some dangerous stuff with bishop to g5. If you allow that, then after bishop to g5 and bishop to f6, you would not have a good control anymore of the d5 square. So because you have already pushed your pawn on c5, you have already pushed your pawn on e5, you don't have anymore your pawns in order to compete somehow for the square d5. So you have to be careful here. I think bishop to g5 would be a huge positional threat, so that's why h6 here. Good move by the fish. We have now knight to d5, we have c4, knight takes e7, bishop queen takes e7, and okay, in the beginning of this game Stockfish 17 lost the bishop pair, but I think it's not such a big deal because this is now still a close game, a positional battle, a positional struggle. So these bishops are not so dangerous, I would say, in these types of structures when the position is not so mobile, when the position is not so dangerous, not so open. So queen to e7, still a good game also for black. We have bishop to b1, and now after knight to c6, Stockfish retreats, challenges now, of course, also the rook here on the a file. We have now a couple of trades of rooks on the a file, and now after bishop to e3, now comes, I would say, already the stunner of this amazing game. Stockfish played here an amazing c3. And this is epic, sacrificing a pawn just in order to lock out now really the light square bishop through the whole game. Usually white wants to play, of course, c3 and then maybe even d4. Okay, still this bishop on b1, it's not optimal on the board because still in any scenario it's still blocked by its own pawn structure. But now with the move c3, it's blocked out till the end of the game. Look at this, really a deep strategic idea. You have to, of course, still struggle. You have to still, of course, battle here. It's not like Stockfish played now c3 and wins the game immediately. But I think from a strategic point of view, this is incredible. Just giving up a pawn, b takes c3, and now Stockfish neutralizes fully. Now the light square bishop, the bishop cannot even go to a2. Even if you try some maneuvers to maybe get your knight here on c1, and then you're trying maybe to play bishop to a2 in order to somehow compete on this diagonal, still the rook is there. So far the bishop is really out of game. Great idea here by the fish. Queen to d2, queen to d7, now knight to h2, preparing, of course, to push the pawn on f4. Rook to a1, Stockfish pins now further the bishop, is not allowing any dangerous stuff also by the rook. If the rook moves now, obviously the bishop is lost. We have now knight to f1, knight to e7, and now finally f4. You see, Ethereal here is desperately trying to somehow open the position, to somehow create an open battle, to somehow let his pawns roll, and finally play maybe even c4, c3, and get this light square bishop into the game. E takes f4, bishop to f4, knight to g6, bishop drops back, and now d5. Forcing immediately a reaction by white. If you don't react in the center of the board, then I think with the move d4, Stockfish would even further lock out the light square bishop. Then after something like c takes d4, queen to d4 could happen. The bishop can again be activated. The knights are controlling here so many squares. The knights are also here, the knight on g6 and also the knight on f6 are protecting the king in a good way. So I think nothing dangerous can happen on the king side here for black. Still this great positional idea is working. Still the bishop on b1 is locked out. We have e5, knight to h7, and now bishop to g3. And even if you try here instead of bishop to g3 the move d4, still you haven't solved your problems of the light square bishop. For instance, knight to g5 could happen, then you're trying maybe to maneuver the knight. Then look at this, knight to e4 could happen. You don't have control of the e4 square. You maybe drop back with the queen, then this queen is coming into the game. You maybe even we can trade off the queens. Even a simplified line for white is here not working. I'm showing you this line because it's not even working for white somehow to trade off pieces and hope for the best. Actually, white has to complicate things somehow, maybe on the king side, in order to make anything in the game. If you go now into this line, you have to, I think, sacrifice even the pawn back, maybe even play c3 just in order somehow to get the bishop. But now you lose this one, and I think it's game over. Even after trades of pieces here, maybe around the square g6, finally, okay, you got rid of your light square bishop. But look at this, the c4 pawn is now a passer. It's supported by the pawn on d5, and now we move the knight maybe somewhere and slowly but surely push it with the support of the light square bishop. This bishop is still locked out. Also this bishop on h2 is now becoming also a bad piece. So even if you solve maybe one positional problem of the light square bishop, you get another positional problem for the dark square bishop. So really amazing stuff here by Stockfish 17. So that's why after knight to h7, bishop to g3, rook to a4, not allowing here some c4 stuff, then something like this could happen, and still the queen could be here endangered on d2. So after the rook to a4, knight to e3, now we have queen to a7, pinning now temporarily the knight, rook to d1, and now knight to g5, rook to f1. Stockfish goes further with this pawn, is trying of course further kick away this bishop from g3, king to h1, and now finally h4. That was also the beauty about this move, rook to a4, because I think in this particular position white would love to play h4 himself, but it's not working because black still has a great protection of the square. King to h1, h4, bishop to h2, and look how paralyzed, how neutralized white's position is. White has really a tough time to go anywhere with the pieces. The knight is maybe here on e3, a flexible piece that could be improved, but these bishops are really out of game. This bishop is out, this bishop is out. Great positional play here by the fish. Queen to d7, we have knight to d1, knight to h7, and now knight to f2. You could maybe try now c4 somehow to finally open the position, but then d takes c4 you cannot take, of course, because the queen is lost. You try maybe c3, then we play something like this. After knight to f2 we can even further trade off the pieces, and now even if again white goes into a simplified line, I would say this is still a better position for black. Again, look at this, the dark square bishop is out. We can play rook to c4 going for this one, and in these types of positions when there's simply no good pawn mobility, I think white's knight is okay. Maybe this knight can play, but black's knights are much better. For instance, if we play knight to g5 and then knight to e6, if we cement the position in front of this pawn on e5, this pawn on e5 will be simply immobile through the whole game, and now suddenly again we would have a similar position that we have talked about. Again, the dark square bishop becomes now a bad piece. Really stunning play. So after knight to h7, knight to f2, again Stockfish pins now the bishop. We have now the move d4. Again, Ethereal is trying somehow to play maybe c4, c3, queen to d8, queen to d3, and now simply protecting the pawn here with queen to b8. Now again, a couple of moves by the queens, and now Stockfish 17 goes for the weakness on c3. We have now queen to d2. Qe7 is now stuck. It's not Qe7, sorry. It's Ethereal is simply stuck to the defense of the pawn on c3. We have now rook to a3 and now knight to d1. Again, white is forced to play just passive moves. You see, with every move, Ethereal has to defend the positions. Ethereal has really tough time to include any of these pieces into the game. We have now knight to f8. The knights are in these types of positions more flexible. You see, Stockfish will eventually find good scores for the pieces. We have now knight to e3 and now knight to d7. And pardon me, this move I really like by the fish, because a move like queen to c3 would probably simplify the game too much here in this position. Then after knight to d1, rook to a3 and c3, finally this bishop would then come out. Could be maybe even traded off for the knight on g6. So Stockfish in this particular position didn't risk anything. Stockfish is saying, okay, you have a weakness now through the whole game. I don't want to play queen to c3 because we don't want to allow your here this bishop to come into the game. Stockfish is keeping it calm. Plays first of all knight to d7. We have now knight to f5. Now again the pin against the bishop, and now queen to e1. You could maybe try here knight to d6 in this position, going maybe for the f7 weakness, but it's a long run. It's not working. I think you go something like this, then you pick up the pawn. Okay, you can have it, but now knight to c3, you're trying to escape with the knight. Now we connect the queen to this bishop, and now there's simply no good check here. You don't have a check here, you don't have a check on f8. Everything is well protected. You have to now finally step back here to the first rank, because you're vulnerable here still around the square b1. And now look at this position, look at this setup. All of the pieces, all the back rank almost. So I think from a strategic point of view, again, a messed up game here for white. So that's why for rook to a1, queen to e1, connecting again the queen here, protecting everything on the first rank. We have now knight to b6 with ideas to hop here, or maybe also to hop on the a4 square and then going for the c3 weakness. We have now knight takes h4, knight takes h4. We have now queen takes h4. Stockfish lost now a pawn, but it doesn't matter. Again, Stockfish goes now for the c3 weakness. The d8 square is controlled by the queen on a5. No dangerous checks are possible here by Ethereal. We have now bishop to f4, knight takes c3. Again, this bishop is hanging. We have now bishop to d2. Ethereal plays now a good move, pins now the knight to the queen. b4, Stockfish protects the knight. We have bishop takes c3, and now after b takes c3, we have reached now this spectacular endgame, where again the light square bishop is simply out. It's almost like here that Stockfish is playing with an extra piece now in this beautiful endgame. We have now king to h2, queen to b6, now comes g4, king to f8. Good move here by Stockfish. This bishop is hanging. You can of course deliver a couple of checks, but you cannot do so much. If you pick up this pawn, we'll simply pick up this bishop here on b1, and the bishop on e6 is holding the position, especially around the square f7. So this tactical sequence is simply not working here for white. So that's why rook to d1, keeping everything good together, everything compact. Now you cannot take here this one. After a couple more moves, you could run maybe into this sequence. It's of course checkmate here, so it's also not working. So that's why after rook to d1, Stockfish keeps it calm, play now king to e8, queen to e1, and now king to d7. Stockfish is marching slowly towards the queen side. What the fish is trying to do is somehow, of course, to play king to b5 and then king to b4, protecting everything, and then go for the light square bishop with the queen here, and maybe also trying to grab it, maybe even go with the king here to b2 if it's of course possible, because the position is so static. You cannot really open anything here. Here really interesting endgame here by these two top engines. King to g2, now we have queen to b8, king to f3, and now g5, preventing of course here some ideas like h4, at least temporarily, because if you play something like this, then of course after a couple of trades, now there is no good check anymore afterwards. So now the bishop would be really hanging here. So after king to g2, we have now queen to b4, king to g3, king to c7, and now finally Ethereal goes for the h4 goal, is trying now somehow to open the position on the h file. We have now king to c8, queen to f1, now we have queen to b6, queen to e1, and now here king to d7. We have now again a couple of moves by the queens, again queen to b5. In no way that, of course, white is going to take the pawn on c3, because again the bishop on b1 is hanging. So that's why king to f2, Stockfish repeats now moves, goes for the b2 square. We have king to g2, and now king to c7, king to g3. We have now king to b7, h4 finally, and now g takes h4, king to h4 leads now into this position, where, okay, it seems so that the king could be very active here, but black's king can be also active, especially here on this side of the board. The bishop is still stuck in. Even if white king comes to f6, still white is, black is holding the position with the bishop on e6, so nothing dangerous, I would say, actually can happen here on this side of the board. After king takes h4 here in this position, Stockfish retreated, is searching, of course, for an opportunity on this side of the board. Rook to d3, again rook to a1, again a repetition, and now queen to b4. A different plan now by the fish, trying to deliver some checks and get the queen into the game. We have now king to g3, queen to c4, keeping, of course, an eye on this d4 pawn. We have now g5, and now king to b6. Finally, Stockfish is going forward with the king. We have queen to f2, and now rook to a8, queen to f6, queen to e2, attacking now the rook. We have now queen to f3, and now after queen takes f3 and king to f3, we have reached now a very, very interesting now rook and bishop and pawn endgame, in which it seems so maybe that that white can hold the position, but again Stockfish plays king to b5. Still the bishop on b1 is simply locked. As I said in the beginning of the video, although white now simplified the game, it's not so dangerous maybe from a tactical point of view now to play this game with the white pieces. Still the bishop, this Lewis bishop on b1 is blocked. It's simply out of game. Look at this, the whole tactical sequence, now the whole positional idea lasted now for 60 moves already, that the bishop is on b1. Very, very stunning stuff here by Stockfish. Rook to g1, king to b4, we have g6, and now king to a3. As I said, now Stockfish goes all in, simply goes for the bishop on b1. And what should you do? If you try here g7, if you try to push the pawn further, then rook to g8 will happen. And the issue is now, after king to b2, you cannot go with your king towards the g file, obviously, because you're lining up the king on the g file and you lose the rook. So that's why you would be pretty much forced to play something like king to f3 here. But then bishop to f5, you're trying maybe to attack it. Then we fix the bishop. You're trying maybe to create some open spaces for the king. But now in this scenario, even rook takes g7 can happen. You pick up this one, we pick up the bishop, and we pick up the pawn afterwards. Again, I would say game over here for white. The pawn on c2 will be lost. We'll simply push the pawn on the c file further. Game over. Even if we try g takes f7 here instead of g7, then we simply pick it up. You're trying to attack it. We simply covered now our discoveries, of course, that are possible. You step back, then a new check will happen. We attack the bishop. You're trying to do something like this. Again, I would say here a messy game. You're trying to push the pawn further, but look at this. After rook to d4, again, game over. There is, of course, the threat to pick up the piece. Here, this bishop is holding, of course, the ex square. Game over for white, for sure. So that's why after rook, king to a3, king to e3 was played. So no movements here by the pawn by white. We have now rook to g8. We have g takes f7, bishop to f7, and now we have rook to f1. We have new check, new attack by the king. Stockfish protects now the bishop, rook to f3, and now finally king to b2. Look how great, again, this position for black is. Black is going now for the bishop on b1. Bishop to a2 has to be played now in order to stay somehow in the game, but now Stockfish finds again the correct plan. Many of us, I think, would pick up this bishop here, but it's not working. Then after rook takes c3, I would say still an unclear position. My Stockfish engine at home evaluates as equal chances now for both sides. So here white would still have 3 pawns on the board and probably could squeeze a draw out of this position. So that's why Stockfish took the pawn, not the bishop on a2. We have now bishop to b1. Finally, we have here king takes b1, and now rook takes c3. But it's a different story now. Here in this scenario, white doesn't have 3 pawns, has only 2 pawns. Now Stockfish continues with bishop to e6. Very important move, not allowing this king to come to f5. We have now rook to c6. Stockfish delivers a check, keeps of course the king out. We have king to e3, and now finally Stockfish goes further with the king. Now again, Stockfish has to activate the king, has of course participate with the king in this beautiful endgame. We have now rook to b6, king to a5, and again rook to c6, king to b5. Now here Ethereal keeps the rook on the 6th rank. It's not allowing, of course, this king to march towards the center of the board. Bishop to f7. We have now rook to d7, bishop to g8, new attack against the bishop, new check, king to f4, and now rook to g1. We have rook to e8, king to c4, going for this pawn. Ethereal has to now protect it. Rook to g3, again king to f4, and now a very important move, rook to g6, protecting of course the e6 square. If you push it, then of course another pawn is lost. And even if you try something like king to f5 here, this is not working. You maybe start to push the pawns, but now in this particular position, it's again game over. Bishop to e6 is then the winning idea. For instance, if you pick it up with the king, then we simply play check. You have to now defend your rook. We pick up this pawn, and again it would be a lost position. If you try here rook takes e6 instead of king takes e6, then a new check. Again, white has to step back towards the g file. Now we pick up the pawn here, and the f file is locked. Now white doesn't have access with the king towards the center of the board, and slowly but surely this pawn will be promoted. In one moment white will have to give up the rook for a pawn. Again, a winning endgame here for black. For rook to g6, that's why here king to e3 was played. Now bishop to e6, rook to e7, and now Stockfish goes simply with the king further. Played now bishop to d7, king to f3, stays simply on the 6th rank. Rook to g7, rook to h4, again going for the pawn. Now bishop to f5, liberating finally this bishop. Now the bishop is of course not stuck to the defense of the e6 square. Now we have rook to g5, and now Stockfish keeps here this bishop on this diagonal. We have rook to g1, rook to e4 check. You have to now step back from the defense of the pawn, and after bishop to d3, in this particular position, Ethereal resigns. So what's the issue? If you try rook to d1 to somehow keep an eye on your d4 square, then here bishop to e2 is winning the game. So whatever you do, this pawn will be lost. It's not playable anymore, this position here for white. So great game by the fish, great positional idea in the beginning. Let's go back to the, I would say, almost critical moment here, the move c3. In this position, realizing the positional problems of white's light square bishop, and then going into the fully endgame stage, and in the end, really amazing ideas here by the newest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 17. And okay, I wanted to again thank you, my viewer Bluebell, for sending me this game. Really incredible stuff. I missed this game. Usually I try to see what's going on the computer chess rating list website. I try to see new ideas, new opportunities, but they're publishing about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 games, so you cannot really see everything. And here I have a viewer that's helping me now constantly. He texted me already about 4 or 5 beautiful games that I've already covered here on my YouTube chess channel. So thank you, Bluebell, for posting me also this amazing game. So okay, if you want to see other beautiful progressive positional ideas, but also cool tactical shots, check out our commented chess games played by computers. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.